Well, I've been doing the acoustic stuff for I think 13 years or so. So the road home just seemed like a natural progression for it right now. I felt like taking the songs, I'd been playing them just by myself, and I felt like taking them and kind of fleshing them out a little bit, putting more dynamics to them with extra instruments. So, you know, Noah and I worked together on so much stuff with Neurosis and other things over the years. It just seemed like a natural that he and I would work together. And then Greg is Noah's roommate. They live in the same building. And Greg's a really accomplished musician of his own. And so it was just easy, you know. It seemed like the right people at the right time. And they really related to these songs. You know, I wrote 10 songs and gave them to them, and they both were really inspired by the songs. So in the end, I think that was really what made it happen. It's not as aggressive, it's not as physical. It's more, it's a lot more subtle. It's not so, it's not so reliant on power or wall of sound or any of these things. It's much more naked. It's much more open. There's nowhere to hide with it. There's lots of places to hide within Neurosis, and it's a pretty comfortable place for all of us. Honestly, in many ways, it's a comfortable place because it's like the place that we created. This is different. This is more of a challenge. It's more the subtleties of what we're doing are very significant in how the songs are perceived. You know, the details are very apparent. You know, so. I grew up listening to a lot of it through my dad and everything. My dad was really into country music, and so that's what I grew up hearing a lot of when I was a kid. And I know I rejected it initially, as most kids do with their parents' music. You don't necessarily like it. But as I got older, I came across it again and began to appreciate the craft of songwriting and the storytelling, again, the openness, the honesty, and I began to be really intrigued by whether I could do that, you know, whether I could craft a song like that, because I knew what I could do with Neurosis. That's, like I said again, that's a comfortable place for me. I know what I do there. It's a place that I created, but this is stepping into maybe another world, you know, and trying to work within it. And then also at the same time, create my own thing within it, you know. So when I first found him, Noah actually made me a CD about 13 years ago, I think. That was the first time that I heard Townes. And it just changed my perspective entirely of what music could be, folk music, acoustic music. I felt like his honesty, his ability to tell a story was just far beyond anything that I had ever come across before. I still have not heard anybody who even comes close to him. Some of his songs are, mainly Poncho and Lefty was a popular song in America when I was growing up, but it wasn't his version. He wrote it, but it was a Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard duet. And that was a popular song. That's his most popular song, probably. The Rolling Stones did Dead Flowers. That was also well known and popular, but I don't know how many people know that he wrote those songs. He's definitely not as well known as I think he should be. One of the reasons that I really like to play his songs, and if nothing else, just so that people can hear them, and then maybe go discover them themselves. Anything to further his legacy that I can do, I want to do. I mean, when I was really little, when I was like 7 or 8, it was started out with stuff like, Deep Purple, and then moved into Kiss and Queen and Ted Nugent and all these bands, hard rock bands when I was a kid. And then when I was about 13, I discovered punk rock and hardcore and stuff. And got into the Plasmatics and Black Flag and, of course, Sex Pistols, Ramones, and all these bands. And that was the scene where I, came of age and grew up in, the bands that opened my mind in so many ways. But I've always been open-minded with music. I mean, not long after falling into the punk scene, somebody turned me on to Black Sabbath and Motorhead and Pink Floyd and all these other bands that were happening at the time. Joy Division and Bauhaus and all these other things. And I always, I like what I like, and I like honest music. I like real music. I don't like, I just like, we don't do visuals anymore. We stopped doing them last year. But about 20 years ago, we decided we wanted to do them because we, at the time, had the idea that we wanted to be able to take our show anywhere and kind of take over any room and make it our space for 90 minutes. So we felt that if we brought the sound and the visuals together, that it would be that much more impactful of a performance, and that we could maybe open people's minds a little bit further. Over time, we kind of lost the taste for it, and eventually last year we decided that we were done with it because we felt like there was enough TVs, phones, computers, every screen in the world that everybody's on all the time, and we didn't want to have another screen contributing to the hypnotizing of the world, and that was. So it was like a very opposite reaction to our initial thought. And so now we play with no visuals and a minimal light show. And, I am still, in my other band, Corrections House, we use a lot of videos to promote the band. I think that the visual aspect of bands can be very impactful and interesting. Corrections House is very visually oriented in many ways. The road home is very simple, very stripped down. There's no real visual aspect to what we do. It's all about the songs. Yeah, I mean, I've been on tour since the 6th of November, so yeah, it's tiring, but it's not. It's not. I mean, tours. People. It's not tiring compared to regular life with responsibilities and stuff. I mean, I have a regular life. I have a life at home. I have children. I have a regular job. I mean, tour is much easier than all of that, because you don't have as many responsibilities when you're touring. You have one responsibility, which is to make the show at night and to perform, which, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's, you know, people make it like it's so fucking hard. It's not. Portugal was great. We had really, really good turnouts in Portugal. People were very, very, very supportive of it. The other night in Zagreb was fantastic. Great turnout. Again, people were very focused and interested in what we were doing. We got to see a lot of great nature when we were in Spain and the south of France, and saw the ocean a lot, which is always really good for your brain, just to be able to breathe the ocean air and hear the ocean, you know. And we had that for almost the first week of the tour. So that's probably the highlights so far. This year at some point, yeah. I'm right now focused on writing it. I'm hoping that we can get it done this year. I have a lot to work on this year. I have to work on Road Home, Neurosis, and Corrections House, new material, as well as maybe Tribes of Neurot. I don't know. Got a lot of work to do. So I find myself working on songs at soundcheck a lot, just riff ideas, and, you know, little ideas come to me. But, you know, not as much as I would like. I've always wished that I could, because there's a lot of time where you're not doing anything, but you kind of like, it's like you save your energy so much for the performance that you spend a lot of time just kind of really quiet and not doing much, you know, because the performance does take a lot of concentration. And even for a physically not demanding show such as this one, it still takes a lot of effort to do it and a lot of focus and energy. So I don't have a favorite. I like them all. I don't play favorites with my songs. I never have. If they make it to the point of being on the record, then I feel that they're as good as any other song on the record. So that's, you know, there's one song, We Burn Through the Night, that's kind of special to me. It's a little bit different. It's told from a unique perspective for me, in that it's a song that I wrote about my family and my relationship to them, and my admiration of them. And I had never written a song like that before. It had always been, everything I'd ever written before was basically my reflections of life and death, you know. There's nothing, not so much positivity ever came into my music, but, you know, I mean, I have a lot to be thankful for in my life, you know, and I actually wrote a song about it, and it was, that's a very unique song to me. We were kids. I was 19, Jason was 16, Dave was 17. We were just finding our way, you know. It was like the first 14 songs we ever wrote as a band together. No apologies. I think that success is, I think I'm living it, because I'm able to do what I want to do artistically. And I think that overcoming any sort of obstacles that people may have in their way to do that is worth it. I think that success is measured by whether you can actually do what you set out to do. I think that artistically I'm successful. Financially, not so much, but that's okay, because the art is more important to me. My disease, my leveler, the things that brought me to my knees in my life, you know. I've got quite a few years of sobriety now, 13 years sober. But and I was a born addict, alcoholic, and it took everything away from me at one point of my life, you know. It still sits there inside of me waiting for me to embrace it again, you know. So it's a conscious decision every day to live my life without it. Music, you know, that's all my spirituality comes through music. It's all, everything I've ever learned spiritually is through music, through my experiences through music. I think that music is the true means of communication, that it's the way that people communicate without having to deal with language, culture, you know, it is absolutely my savior is music. You know, without music, there's no way that I would have survived this long, because it absolutely saved me from myself.